Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com.
In 1933, Fred Bear created a legacy, pursuing his lifelong passion. Fred's mission was to ensure archery remains accessible to everyone. Here at Bear Archery, we promise to never forget the principles our brands were founded on. From the youngest archer to the oldest, we strive to build bows that give you the best shooting experience. Visit beararchery.com to discover more.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. This is the 115th episode of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If that was the number you were looking for, you were in the right place. So, good job. And even better job if you've left a review and a rating on iTunes. I appreciate it. It makes me happy. I still don't know exactly what it does, but I just like to see them. Because I talk, and it's nice when people listen. And you make that happen. You bring that whole thing full circle. So thank you very much. Okay, wintertime fly fishing. I kind of go through my normal routine of articles and podcasts, just doing different spins on them, try to get a couple of product reviews out there, but just like winter fly fishing tips, destination ideas, a couple of stories, that sort of stuff. This year, I realized that it is almost the end of January, and I have not talked about fly fishing shows and expos. Well, there's a reason for that. It's 2020. There isn't any large-scale gatherings. Now, I know there are a few exceptions, and that's totally cool, but by and large, everything has been postponed. If you want more information about fly fishing shows, I would recommend you go back and listen to a previous podcast on that topic. And I have plenty of articles on how to get your most bang for your buck when you go, what to spend your time doing, why it's worth doing, why if you have gone to one before and didn't think like it was worth it, that it might be a you problem, and give you a couple of suggestions as to maybe how to get more out of it. So I've written about it quite a bit, but I'm kind of bummed out because there's a couple of weekends in January, February every year where I would go to fly fishing show weekends. I'd make a whole thing out of it. I would try to go to the one outside of Boston, Marlboro, and I would go to the one in Edison, in New Jersey. And that's the big one. That's the real big event of the branded The Fly Fishing Show circuit. But then I would go to some local ones also. Some local fly shops would put on shows. Some local Trout Unlimited chapters would put on shows. In your area, it might be a different event organizer that puts on a show. It could very well maybe a fish and gun club that puts something on. They're out there, but there's a very good chance that they're not happening this year like they otherwise would. And say what you want about the response to the coronavirus. It's a real thing. But how people have responded to it in different states and municipalities, it is what it is, but I get why these groups are shutting these things down. Aside from the potential public health risks, there's a great economical investment that you have to make to get these things to happen, and it's probably just not going to yield the amount of people you need coming through those doors to make it a worthwhile venture. So they're not happening. But can you still have that kind of experience of a fly fishing show without going to a fly fishing show or fly fishing expo? Yes and no. And I'll start off by saying the one thing that you are not going to get is the FaceTime. You're not going to be able to stand in front of somebody and have a conversation. Now, that might be hearing a sales pitch, which I absolutely love. And just as a little bit of a rabbit trail, there's something to be said for somebody who can sell something well. There's a lot of fly fishing products that are within very, very tight margins of being the same thing, because there really is only so much variation that you can put into line and flies and rods and reels and all those things, and especially when you get to the same price point. You might could lean on aesthetics, you might could lean on reputation and warranty, but for me, if I'm talking to that head sales rep or maybe even the owner or the designer of that product and I get a good sales pitch, that's something that I will seriously take into account because that just shows the heart and the person behind the product. But anyway, so there's that kind of face-to-face time. But there's also the exposure to other anglers. So one of the things I would do is I would always go and I'd help some of my friends who are in the industry. I mean, casting across, I don't sell anything. I don't have a product that I'm peddling. Obviously, I want people to read the website and listen to the podcast and be engaged on social media and all those things. But I don't need a booth. I go and I write about the fly fishing show and I talk about the fly fishing show, but I mean, I want to do something else. So for me, going to the show always means getting behind a booth with one of my friends in the industry and selling products with them and for them and being able to have that engagement and being able to meet people that I've only gotten emails from online and have had social media chirps and people who listen and subscribe and read the website. I love that. But beyond that, I'm just as much a curious angler as anyone else. I will go up to people and talk to them and maybe see their face and recognize them from social media or from YouTube or something like that and have a conversation with them. And then the next level, meeting people who are selling products, who are at conservation organization booths, who are giving the demonstrations. That is a wonderful part of this community because really, you kind of have to be authentic to really make it. Of course, there's some rotten apples and bad eggs and whatnot, and you're going to find that in any group of people. I think 1 in 10, maybe that's a little bit high, but you're always going to have somebody who's a little bit difficult to work with. But by and large, in the fly fishing world, people are approachable. You really can't get to the top without being authentic and without being real and without just enjoying being around other people. The culture of fly fishing is really an integral part of making it, if I can put it that way. So all that to say, there's no way to replicate that outside of going to a show. And so maybe that's the big bummer. That's the big, letdown to start the episode off with, is that you're not going to be able to, in a pandemic, in a shutdown, when things are not operating, you're not going to be able to have that. Having it on Zoom's not the same. You're never going to stumble into 35 people on the trout stream that you're going to sit around with and hang out with for hours on end. You might have a couple of guys, you might have your Trout Unlimited friends, you might have just your fishing buddies, but it's not the same as that giant crowd at the fly fishing show and in the hotel lobby afterwards and all that sort of stuff. And it's a wonderful scene, you just can't do it. But hey, there's a lot of things we can't do these days. But that doesn't mean that you can't get some of that pop and some of that benefit that you would otherwise get at a fly fishing event from the comfort of your own home. So I'm going to talk about 2 of those things, how you can do them, and maybe whet your appetite for one of the fly fishing shows that could be coming up later in the year. I have some optimism that there's some events that are still going to take place, even under normal circumstances. There's some that happen like March, April, May, June. Who knows? But the first thing is shop for that new product. So one of the cool things about going to a fly fishing show, it's like going to a big store in some senses because you are window shopping and you might see things that you didn't know you needed. Now, I'm not saying that in some hyper consumer materialistic sense of, well, I didn't need that. Now that I saw that, I know that I need it. This could very well be, you know what, my fishing shirt is worn out. There's a fishing shirt. I'm going to buy it. I didn't realize it until I saw it. Or, you know what, I've been looking for that color of rooster neck. Now I can buy that color of rooster neck because I've been using dark green or I've been using really pale green, but here's a nice lime green dyed rooster neck. I'm going to buy it because it's in front of me. I mean, that's great. It's not impulsive. Certainly we can make impulsive buys, but there's also the bigger purchases. Get a new rod, get a new reel, maybe even buy an inflatable. That's one of the great things about going to these fly fishing shows is that you can go sit in some of these inflatables that are usually direct to consumer or maybe have a very small distribution base that they work with. So to be able to go sit in one of these boats and say, you know what, this is the kind of thing that I need for my stream or for my pond, or this probably would, seeing it broken down, fit in the back of my station wagon. Those are things that are awesome to do at a fly fishing show. Now, again, you can't do that online from the comfort of your home, but you can kind of have a facsimile of that. And here's what I think about when I think about this. 25 years ago or whatever, what happened? I would get this stack of catalogs in the mail. These days they don't do that. One, because it's not eco-friendly, and two, because you can provide so much more information and much more dynamic information online, both from a video and interactive aspect, but then also stuff that can be changed at the drop of a hat. You have companies that roll out new products throughout the course of the year, not just winter or winter and summer. So you go online, and I do that just to kind of stay in the loop of what's happening in fly fishing. There's a lot of companies I don't follow on social media because there's kind of the same content from a lot of the big companies, just lots of fish shots, which is fun and all, but what I like to do is just go through some of the major fly rod companies, the major reel companies, the major line companies, the major accessory companies, and just go to their website and see what's new, see what they've got on the splash page, just to know what is out there. And that's the kind of thing that you would get if you go to a fly fishing show. They put the new stuff on the front of their display so you can kind of have an idea of this is what's out there. It might not be anything that I'm interested in, but I know it's there. That way, if either today or next week, or in a couple of months, or once something that I have breaks, I know kind of what my options are if I want to do something a little bit different, or if what I have I can't replace, so I have to do something different. That's one of the benefits of just kind of walking those aisles at those shows, is that you get an idea of what's out there. You can kind of do the same thing at home, but you don't have to go through this pile of catalogs. You can just click through a handful of websites. And there's, a number of fly shops that have a very, very robust selection online, but you're probably not going to get the same sort of detail and kind of the little mini sales pitch that you would get if you were to go onto these companies' websites. And once you find something that you like, then go down on that website, on the bottom, on the menu bar, wherever it might be, you're going to find dealers that are in your area. And there's a good chance that if it's a big company, there's somebody within a reasonable drive where you can go and actually touch that thing. You can hold that reel. You can try on those waders. You can see if that chest pack fits, whatever it might be. And then you can patronize those local businesses, those local fly shops, which actually is one of the cool things about fly fishing shows, is that a lot of these shows where the big companies go and set up booths, they're not selling their rods, reels, waders, flies, newest tools. They have them there to talk about and to promote them, but then what they'll say when you say, well, I want to buy this new whatever, is they'll say, okay, well, there is this fly shop and this fly shop and this outfitter. You can see they have a sign, and you can probably see them, in the expo hall. They're there and there. You can buy it from one of those places. They should have a handful, and if they don't, then come talk to us. It's a kind of a cool thing, and it helps promote those local businesses. So if large fly fishing company A goes to Denver and Seattle and New Jersey, they're not selling direct to consumer in those three cities. They're utilizing maybe 2 or 3 different fly shops, and so they're supporting those local businesses. So that's a cool thing, and that's something that I would recommend that you do if you are doing online shopping, kind of in lieu of a fly fishing show visit. Now, what does this leave out? Of course, this leaves out some of the smaller companies, the new companies. That's one of the cool things too about fly fishing shows, is you are exposed to products and companies that you would not otherwise see. Local, regional, small businesses that are maybe making their own product and maybe only 1 or 2 products. So how do you find these companies? Admittedly, this is a little bit more difficult. It involves just kind of keeping an eye open and maybe knowing the right hashtags. You put in hashtag fly fishing gear. You might get a lot of people trying to attract attention to their own account, but you might also have people doing that because they are a small company in fly fishing. The algorithm will start to check out what you are looking at, and you'll start to see more small companies that make fly boxes or sell flies or sell t-shirts or hats or things like that. And so that kind of stuff that you wouldn't otherwise see, now you can see. The same Facebook does a similar thing to Instagram, where you're able to kind of start to fall down that rabbit hole. It's an imperfect science, but again, it gives you a chance to see something that you might not otherwise see. So make a deliberate effort. Use your coffee break or your lunch break, or as you're falling asleep at night, to just scroll through some of the companies that are out there, and just to kind of get familiar with what's available. And email. I find that whether it be for casting across or whether it be for just my own personal interest, the reps for these companies are very responsive. Customer service at whateverflyfishingcompany.com. They'll get back to you, and you can have a little taste of that interaction that you'd otherwise have if you were face-to-face with that person. Okay, a long conversation on, first, what you can't do, which is talk to people face-to-face. Secondly, what you can do, which is kind of get an idea of what's out there new in the fly fishing world. And a lot of those websites will have the new arrivals or fresh for 2021 or something like that. It'll be on that splash page. Easy to find. Thirdly, you're not going to be able to sit in on a class with an expert and have them talking 15 feet from you as they tie a fly or demonstrate mending techniques or point to a board with big pictures from Patagonia on it from their last trip there because they guide or whatever. You're not going to be able to have that. But there are a lot of options out there. First, a little PSA. When we get back to normal and you can go to fly fishing events and expos and shows and whatnot, go to those classes. I talked to some of the folks that run these events, and that is their recommendation, especially the free ones. They say it kind of boggles their mind that more people don't go to these free events. Not free, but included in the cost of their ticket. There's always like paid classes you can do, and those are fantastic. Those usually fill up. There's something to be said there for the perceived value of something you pay for. But anyway, those free classes. There's always classes about fly tying. There's always classes about technique. There's usually classes about local destinations, and there's also classes on exotic destinations. If I were kind of a paying customer that wasn't doing some of the other stuff that I'm doing, I would try to hit at least one of each of those just to kind of whet my appetite and have some exposure to all those different topics. But you can't do that this year. You're not going to be able to do it. Your local fly shop, however, might have something available, either in a socially distanced capacity or on Zoom. I'm on 3 Trout Unlimited email lists from different chapters I've been involved with over the years. And so I see what they're doing, and they're doing some really cool stuff. I've sat in virtually on a couple for my local chapter here, some really high quality presentations from some big names, the kind of people that would appear at these fly fishing events. And so they're able to get a little bit of exposure. They're able to talk in a kind of a quasi-intimate setting because it's only, maybe 15, 20 people because it's just a TU chapter or whatever. And you're getting that information you want about how to tie a fly, a particular technique. These things are great ways to kind of get you through the winter, and a lot more people are going to be available this time of year. So seek those things out. See what's going on in your local chapter. See what's going on in your local fly shop. There's a fly shop, and I haven't tuned into anything that they're doing, but they're getting local tires to just set up, and they're letting people know ahead of time what materials are needed. That way, you sit down at your vise with everything that you need, and you tie along for these few patterns. So it's a kind of a fellowship activity. It's a hanging out activity, but it's also a chance for you to learn how to tie a new fly. And of course, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube, but you make those deliberate choices to say, okay, I'm going to learn a couple new things. I am going to watch what is effectively a commercial for a product or a place or something like that, but I'm going to just maybe make an educated decision about going to this lodge or buying from this company or something like that because they have made a pretty 15-minute short film, which is actually a commercial. But you know what? I mean, everything's like that these days, so it's okay. You just kind of got to go into it realizing that you're being sold something, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. All right. So again, I apologize. You can't go to any shows or events or expos this year, but you know what? They'll be back. And like I said before, if you didn't enjoy the last one you went to, try going and just doing something totally different. If you are the opposite of me and you're antisocial and you don't want to have all those conversations with people, then that's okay. Just pick out the 4 or 5 classes you want to go knock those out, make a beeline to the booths that you want to go see, and maybe talk to somebody that's, in conservation. if the commercialism of it and the sales pitches are something that you don't like, then there's plenty of groups that are helping veterans or new people get into the sport or restoring local watersheds. You know what? They'd be happy for you to get involved and go out and do some work by yourself. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you miss that after party, if you miss the wild and crazy antics that happen, then we're just gonna have to wait for it. It's coming back. It'll be happening next year, and it's okay. It'll be great. It'll be good. We'll have missed it, but it's going to be just as exciting when it comes back next season. And like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if there are a lot of alternative events that happen as soon as things start to open up. And Lord willing, they'll be opening up this summer. But at that point in time, we'll be fishing, won't we? A lot more than we are now. This week on Casting Across, 2 articles, as usual. Monday's article, My Reinvented Trout Stream. So I went to walk on the banks of one of my favorite little local trout streams last week. I fell down. I'm just getting old, I guess. Fell down and wiped out. But the reason why I fell down and wiped out is because my right foot went into like a 3.5-foot hole that was never there. And my right knee just completely got smashed on a rock. Let's say right foot slipped, left knee got smashed. Yeah, that's how it happened. But the reason that hole was there was because there's a new little plunge pool being created from a diversion on the downstream side of a beaver dam. And this thing is huge. For this small stream, it is quite the undertaking. These beavers were, as they say, busy. But what did this do? It really changed the course of this stream. And initially I was like, oh man, I got to get a hold of the Wildlife Commission for the state and let them know what's going on. They can come in here and tear this out and things get back to normal. But then I thought, you know what? This is a really healthy stream. It's a spring influence stream. So although the water upstream from the dam is going to warm up a little bit, it still should be cool enough summertime to maintain the trout populations. And it's a big dam for that stream, but it's not that big of a dam. It's not going to be a huge like lake or anything like that. And this might create some opportunities for some of these fish, which can get, 8, 9, 10 inches, to maybe push a couple more inches if they have some deeper water where they can chase some larger prey species, maybe some bigger leeches, maybe some more minnows and things like that. But I write about that and some ways to think about water that changes, because there's a chance that your water has changed over the seasons. There's a natural evolution to every water body, and sometimes we don't see that because they are often protected, and we kind of think that we need to keep streams the way that they look now, but that's not how nature works. Nature adapts. Nature finds ways to change things, and there's actually a real healthy benefit to that. So this beaver dam may very well be that for my little trout stream. So I wrote about that. Wednesday's article was a little bit different for the old Casting Across. It's called 5 Minutes More and One Last Cast Part 1. It is a third-person, semi-fictional tale of a fishing trip. So it's split into parts because we're talking thousands of words. So this is the first part of at least 3. And you can read the exploits of this character as he heads up into the mountains to catch some brook trout on castingacross.com. This week on Casting Across, I am going to recommend Redington gear. I talk about Redington a lot. I like Redington. Let me tell you real quick why I like Redington. Price point is awesome. You really can't beat it. Secondly, their branding is different. They stand out. They're not afraid to be bold, but they're not over the top. They use color, but it's not in an obnoxious way. They appeal to kind of an average angler, skewing slightly younger, but not so much that somebody who maybe is a little bit mature will think, this is not for me. So it's just a refreshing take on traditional fly fishing gear. So they've come out with a few new products that I just kind of wanted to highlight. The first is a rod called the Claymore. It is a spey rod, and it starts in very, very small, lightweight trout spey, all the way up to really big winter steelhead weights. And so it's a two-handed rod, and it's got a fast action for pushing out line really, really far. Two-handed trout fishing is something that I really want to get more into. I've done a little bit of it on some larger rivers in the East Coast, but I want to do more of it here in New England, and so I'm looking to get back into that. So this rod is certainly on my radar. They have a couple other new products, but I'll tell you what, like I said before, go to Redington.com and check out their kind of new for 2020 selection. And you'll see some of the new rods, you'll see some of the new gear that they have put out, and some of the products that I've talked about before on the podcast and on the website that I'm a huge fan of, like the Behemoth Reel and the Benchmark wading boots and a couple other ones. They're all there, and you can check them out. But definitely check out the Claymore rod. If you have not done the two-handed casting, that would be a great thing for you to look into for this time of year. Fly shops might offer socially distanced casting lessons where you have a chance to test out a completely new way of casting. So look at Redington.com. I will put a link to the Claymore and some of their other new products on the show notes for this episode's page on castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast in iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com where you'll find more info on this podcast and 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6'8" Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.